Welcome back to the Sugar and Strength podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Gergen, and today we're going to shift directions a little bit. I feel like I've been pretty info heavy lately, and today we are going to dive a little bit further into mindset. And how we're going to do that, I'm actually going to tie in some things from my business trip last week. So if you missed my Instagram stories, last week I went with my friend Elizabeth to the Sister Circle Summit in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And it was a day and a half retreat essentially. And it was all women, which was amazing. So I got to connect with a ton of different women, entrepreneurs, a lot of them like me being a solopreneur, where they are the person doing all of the things. And it was just so nice again to connect. And a few themes tend to surface. So today I want to talk about three things in particular that stuck out to me, I would say business-wise, but then I think a lot of these things correlate to any person's health or wellness journey. So we're going to break down those three things that came up. There was one theme in particular that just really hit home with me. And just to kind of give you an idea of where my head was at coming into this event, this was totally out of my comfort zone. So even the color palette being all the pinks and pastels, this girl, obviously if you're watching, it's a lot of neutrals and blacks and whites and just drab flannels. So even the color palette was a little out of my comfort zone, but it was just, again, such an amazing time to just kind of sit back, connect with other professionals, and just really do some internal digging a little bit. Because coming off of book launch, I just spent the last year kind of wrapped up with writing and marketing and launching a book. And now that wave has kind of crescendoed a little bit, I was just finding that I was feeling a little bit floundery in the business department. So this was just a really great recentering and grounding. And again, I just got to connect with so many people and take home so many words of wisdom. To kick us off, I want to talk about one theme that I noticed both at the business conference, but then also life in general. I feel like, once you have that lens on, you start to see these themes in a lot of different areas. And I seen it coming up in, I would say, some posts that I was seeing. It came up in my daily devotional. That's something that I've been trying to be more deliberate about, is just kind of having that quiet time every morning and just kind of touching base with my spirituality, because that's something that I've been neglecting for a really long time. And this theme of identity kept coming up. And specifically at the conference, there was a few different speakers that touched on this in a few different ways, but essentially living into that person that you want to be. And somebody had brought up a quote from James Clear, Atomic Habits. If you read that book, he talks about just kind of stepping into who you want to be. So for example, I had mentioned how I was writing a book. So instead of being or thinking to yourself, I'm going to write a book, thinking about yourself as I'm going to be an author, I am an author. Or if you're someone who wants to be more active, thinking about yourself as an athlete. So really changing how you identify with yourself and embodying that person. And I think this is a great correlation to a health and wellness journey. And it just got me thinking about even things that I feel like I've been slacking on, both in business and I would say personal life health journey. I took a step back and was like, how is the person that I want to be, what does their morning routine look like? So how this could maybe correlate, or a nugget for you to take with you today, is thinking about how would your goal weight self act? What are the decisions that they're making on a daily basis? What kind of meals are they eating? What does their morning and evening routine look like? What are those priorities when you have that different frame of mind? And one speaker in particular during the Sister Summit, Jillian Murphy, was an excellent speaker. She had so many words of wisdom to share specifically around Instagram and social media. But when she was talking about this concept of identity, she summed it up into 3 words, and that was be her now. So whoever that person is that you aspire to be, thinking about being that person in the moment. Again, what kind of decisions are they making? How do you view yourself? I feel like that just really embodies and changes how you make a lot of your daily decisions. And this ties into a podcast that I listened to on my drive home. I had like almost 4 hours on the drive home. So I had some nice silent time to be able to let a lot of the concepts kind of sit. And then I needed something to keep me up. And a podcast that had been brought up was the Lori Harder podcast. So her podcast is Earn Your Happy. And I happened to stumble across one about style, which, if you know me, you know that I have zero style or fashion sense. And I just wear things like this, like athleisure and flannels all the time. And it's just something I've never really prioritized. But they were even talking about how the way you dress, you start to attract the type of people that you want to hang out with, or you start to carry yourself differently just by taking that time. And I think a lot of us post-pandemic, like we just haven't gotten back into that maybe fashion sense that we were in pre-COVID, for example. I think, a lot of us just perpetually live in yoga pants and athleisure. And when you dress up and actually put jeans on, for example, you probably feel pretty good. So just thinking about even how that impacts things like your style and how you dress. And when you're dressing the part, you tend to, again, attract a lot of those peoples, or even just bring up more conversation. People are probably more likely to comment or ask you like, hey, where did you get that top? Not, oh man, it looks like those yoga pants have really seen their better days. So just a little something to think about there. And one thing that I love from one of the other speakers, her name was Cheryl. She was talking about how she basically at the age of, I believe, was she 40 or 50? She got a divorce, she moved states, she just made these really huge life changes. And one thing that she did, if it feels like such a big gap from where you're at now to where you want to be, she was talking about what is something that you can do in the next 24 hours. So thinking back on that, if you feel so far removed from that person that you want to be, breaking that down into something more actionable. What is one simple thing that you can do in the next 24 hours to get one step closer to that person you ultimately want to become? So summing up this first part of our 3-part series today is thinking about identity. If you're not where you want to be, how would that 140-pound self or 30K a month person, like what are the things that they would do instead of being stuck in that mindset that maybe has got you feeling a little bit stuck? How would you make those decisions differently? And I feel like the past few days of me just being home and thinking about like, what would that version of Kayla do? It has certainly helped motivate me to get out and get more walks in, or to do a little meal prep, or to treat my business a little bit differently. So leaving that nugget with you today. If you're not where you want to be, what's something that you can do in the next 24 hours to help get you just one step closer to that person? Tying into that, one of the second takeaways that really stood out to me was thinking about your daily rituals and your weekly and monthly rhythm. So essentially, what do your rituals and rhythms look like? And I feel like one thing that I see in myself and in a lot of my clients is that we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. We don't really have any structure to our day or our week or our month. And we're just kind of at the liberty of what lands at our lap versus us taking control and really embedding a lot of these habits. So maybe taking a little bit of a time or energy audit, seeing where your time is going. I know for me, I get super easily distracted, and that just takes me on a lot of different rabbit holes. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, well, I felt like I was busy, but was I really productive? Those two things aren't the same. You can be really busy, but you can also be minutely productive. So just thinking about where that time and energy is going. If you really want to stop grinding your gears, do something like a time audit and just write down what you're doing throughout the day, like keeping essentially a log or just a journal of where your time is going. And you will probably learn really quickly where a lot of your time is wasted and where you could maybe channel that a little bit. And for me personally, one thing that is really helpful when I find that I'm really struggling to sit down and do a task is getting out the old timer. I have a 60-minute little dial essentially. And if I find that I'm especially distracted, I will take my timer. You could do this on your phone. The Pomodoro app is really good too. It's free. And essentially you're just setting no more than an hour. So maybe it looks like 15, 30, 45 minutes. And then you're getting those tasks completed. And when you have that timer that is just counting down in front of you, that is going to light a fire under your butt and it's going to keep your focus. If you want to take it one step further, putting your phone away. And, not even that much. Sometimes I'll put my phone in my drawer or even just simply set a notebook on top of it. And you don't realize like how subconsciously you're just always reaching for your phone. Or maybe I'll pull up my phone to use the calculator and all of a sudden I've been scrolling through Instagram for 15 minutes. And I know you're relating to this. So if you find that you just don't know where that time is going, number one, doing something like a time audit. And then number two, maybe considering using something like a timer just to help you get your tasks on hand. So getting really intentional about what those daily rituals look like. And then on a more long-term basis, what do your rhythms look like? And this could be weekly, it could be monthly. A few things that come to mind is something that I've been struggling with lately is just having some of those kind of meals mapped out. So doing a little bit of meal planning. And what I find for a lot of people is if they have a weekly rhythm that they can fall back to. So I'm thinking about like Taco Tuesdays or Friday's pizza night, just having a little bit of structure even implemented within those meals that you want to incorporate through the week takes a lot of pressure off of you. So that way when the family inevitably asks what's for dinner tonight, you don't want to spit fire at them. So just thinking about how you can turn those weekly rhythms, whether it's a meal plan, whether it's workouts, and embedding that a little bit further because that is really going to help take things to the next level as well. So to recap so far, we talked about identity. So thinking about that person that you want to be and making sure that your actions now are aligning with that person. Whether it, again, is a weight goal, whether it is something that you just want to get more intentional on. Number two, what are those habits that are supporting that identity? What are those rhythms and rituals? And then lastly, number three, this is probably the one that hurt the most to hear. And this was a value alignment. So Callie Ray, she just gave an excellent 10-minute little micro talk about a few different things. I can't even remember what was all in it. She had so many nuggets of information, and I've actually been messaging with her. She will be on the podcast, topic to be determined, but stay tuned for more on that. She is a coach and she does everything from massage therapy. She does couples counseling. She talks about sex. So we are going to have a lot of great nuggets to talk about when she comes on. But when she first came on stage, she essentially pulled us all. So imagine 40 people in the room maybe. And she asked us how many of us value our partner over our business. And as you can imagine, the whole room, their hands were up. And then the next question she asked was, how many of us act like that? How many of us put our partner before our business? It doesn't have to be business. It could be work. How many of us act in alignment with that? And again, as you can imagine, everybody's hand went down. So all of us are valuing our spouse or our partner above our work, but we're not always acting like that. And it really made me think about this post that I saw from John Acuff. And he's an author. One book that I love by him is Finish. And it's a great kind of humorous goal setting book. But on his Instagram, I saw him post and the quote was, "Give your family the best of you, not the rest of you." I'll let that sink in a bit. Give your family the best of you, not the rest of you. And that just really hit home because I know typically by the end of the day, I'm just, wiped. I feel like I've spent a lot of time and emotional energy with clients and, doing all of the things like taxes and marketing and, doing all the back end management because I am a one-woman show over here. And I just know that this really hit home from Callie's talk because I certainly know that I don't save the best of me for my spouse. And that really hurt to hear. So something that I'm certainly working on is putting my phone down, for example, when we're having conversation. We've been restarting just getting our daily walks in, and I just love, love, love that time because there is no distraction from screens and we're able to just kind of walk in the same direction. We're able to have good conversation. So that's something just with the nicer weather we've been reincorporating, and I just really enjoy that time both in the morning and the evening. If we can sandwich our day with that, it really just makes a world of difference, and I cherish that one-on-one time. So ultimately, I'll ask you that question today. Do you value your partner over your work? And then part 2 to that, are you acting in alignment with those values? So something to, again, tease out there. Where can you carve out time or maybe transfer your energy if you feel like, again, thinking back to point number 2, if you feel like some of that energy has just gone by the end of the day, how can you ration some of that so you have a little bit left, or having date nights or whatever that might look like for you as a couple to help make sure that you are acting in alignment with that value. And then lastly, a little bonus takeaway, I guess. So the host of the Sister Summit event is Stephanie Ross, and she wrapped up by talking about how you are at Summit, but there is no summit. And I thought that that was just really important because I think for all of my fellow type A high achievers, we're always just chasing that next thing. So when we complete something, we don't take time to celebrate. We're just on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And that finish line is always moving, and that can just lead to a lot of burnout and maybe resentment in some cases. So just knowing that there's not really a finish line, I feel like for me personally gives me a little bit of mixed feelings. There's some relief there, maybe just knowing that, okay, there's not a finish line that I'm up against that I feel like I have to cross, but then maybe a little bit of feeling daunted because we just know that there is no finish line and we like to have things to complete and check those boxes. Ultimately, just knowing that the work is never done. Again, sometimes there might be some relief just knowing that you're not behind. I feel like so often we're in competition with ourselves or with other people, and this is a continual process. So whether that's in your business, whether that's in your health journey, I feel like you're always constantly learning and growing, and just knowing that there is no box to check at the end of the day. I'll wrap up by saying that this event really inspired me to help pour different, more creative energy into the Sugar and Strength Academy. And if you're not familiar with that, that's my women's only online community. And to be fully transparent, it just seems like everybody's got their communities nowadays, but this just helped me look at more creative ways that I can engage people. So for example, I will be doing some remodeling. This event has taught me that I don't have to do everything on my own. I feel like sometimes that takes a little bit of pride, knowing that, okay, I'm going to do all of the things. But since I've returned home, I've reached out to people, like maybe hiring a VA, for example. I reached out to somebody to help me with some training plans, because while I really like putting my personal trainer hat on sometimes, I really love wearing my dietitian and coach hat and being in that CGM scope of practice. So that's really where I want a lot of my energy to go. And especially to my one-on-one folks who were, communicating almost on a daily basis. I still want to be very much accessible to my Sugar and Strength Academy members, but I also want to engage them in more creative ways. So over the next several weeks here, the Sugar and Strength Academy is going through a little bit of a remodel. I'm planning to add more functional fitness workouts, so things that you can do at home. That might be using free weights like dumbbells, that might be using your ruck. I am still healing up a little bit. If you missed my stories, I'm rehabbing a fractured vertebrae, and I'm about 3 weeks into a 6 to 8 week recovery. So that means no bending, lifting, or twisting for 8 weeks. And that includes rucking, which is kind of really hurts my heart. But I really want to come back stronger, so I'm being really thoughtful. And I will say that there's a couple things that still you really take for granted, like putting your own socks on and flipping your hair into a towel after a shower. Those are some things that I just can't do right now. But anyways, there are more things coming down the pipeline, like more creative events. I'd love to do some co-cooking or co-cleaning events. So taking some of those things that we just don't like to do, like meal prep or cook or decluttering, and signing on and doing them all together. Think of this like a focus mate session, but for your health, or even doing something like a mastermind, but for your health journey. So one example was at our mastermind dinner at Summit last week. One thing that we did was go around the table. We had 1 minute to share our struggle, and then we got 5 minutes of feedback. And I think something like that would just be really nice to kind of hold of a mirror to some of the struggles that we're encountering. So more of that to come in the health setting in the Sugar and Strength Academy. If you're not already a part of my newsletter, I will be sending out updates on there. So I will link my Win the Week newsletter below, where I'm sending out free weekly tips. If you're not already a part of that, be sure that you hop on. Otherwise, I hope that I've given you some good food for thought today, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.